Welcome to the next part of the book, Hyperfocus: How to Work Less and Achieve More. Chapter 1: Switching off Autopilot Mode. Right now, there is good chance that you are focused on this book, but how did you get there? Looking at the book in my own library, I learned about most of them through recommendations from friends, podcast appearances by author, or having loved similar book. Most of us don't deliberately plot out which element of our life we want to improve before setting on a book that will help us address that issue. We often arrive at those reading decisions because of confluence of events. Take, for example, last book I read. One day I was riding in a taxi whose driver had the radio on and I heard an interview with the author. Later, a friend tweeted about that book twice. This accumulation of mention led to my eventual decision to buy the book. The process as a whole was anything but deliberate. Our not plotting out in detail everything we do and every decision we make is for most part of a good things. I made the series of decisions involved in the purchasing many of my book in autopilot mode. Autopilot mode enables us to keep up with the demand of our life. For example, imagine if every email response requires you to draft your answer in a new Word document. From there, you did have to reread it several times and send it to your significant other for improvements and print it once or twice to do line edit, only to arrive several hours later in a final, equal, sure, sounds good. These might be productive things to do for an important project, but for every email, imagine being just a deliberate buying ketchup, taking out the trash, or brushing your teeth. Autopilot mode guides us through action like these. As many as 40% of our action are habits, which shouldn't require concise deliberation. Unless you are a monk, have a luxury of being able to meditate all day, it's impossible to live intentionally 100% of the time. But some decisions are worth making deliberately. How we manage our attention is one of them. We typically manage our attention on autopilot. When we receive an email from our boss, we instinctively stop what we are doing to respond to it. When someone has posted a picture of us online, we check to see how we look, then click to read what poster said about us. When we are talking with coworker or loved one, we automatically focus on forming clever responses in our head before she finishes her thought. One of the most underrated skill, letting other people finish their sentence before starting yours. Here's a simple exercise that will take you 30 seconds. Come up with an honest answer to this question. Throughout the day, how frequently do you choose what to focus on? In other words, roughly how much of your time do you spend deliberately and with intention deciding in advance what you want to do and when you will do it? Most people don't fare too well with their answers. We lead busy lives, and at most, we only occasionally choose to focus on something intentionally. When we catch ourselves daydreaming, sense that we have been procrastinating, fall into the trap of bouncing around the same several apps or website, or realize we have zoned out while watching our kids. After we snap out autopilot mode, we consider what we really ought to be doing, make the effort of realign our neurons to focus on that instead. While falling into the autopilot mode, we can help us keep up the pace of work and life. Attention is our most limited and constrained resource. The more we can manage our attention with intention, the more focused, productive, and creative we become. A day in autopilot mode. The environment in which we live and work, unfortunately, have their own agenda for claiming our attention, bombarding us with alerts, notifications, beeps, and buzzes. This steady stream of interruptions prevent us from diving into any one thing properly. After all, it isn't long before we are presented with another email that feels just as urgent. If you are still here, you are probably better at focusing than our average person. Reading a book requires a good deal of attention, and with attention become a rare commodity. Fewer people are able to devote themselves to reading without distraction. But it's worth quickly asking, how much of your attention are you directing to this paragraph in this moment? Are you focused on it 100%, 85%, 50%? How has your level of focus changed over time, especially as you move from one environment to another? How frequently has your mind wandered from that word on this page to the thoughts in your head? Eyes skimming, focus free until you caught yourself and turned back in. Even most experienced, focused readers have these mind wandering episodes. It's not unusual to have hard time focusing. There are countless everyday examples of how little control we have over our attention in daily life. Take for example the followings. How our mind refuses to shut off when we are laying in the bed at night, while a large part of us want to sleep because we have things to do in the morning, but mind insists on reliving the entire day. How our mind brings up cringe-worthy memories at the worst possible time when we do these thoughts came from. How incredible idea and insight come to us while our mind is wandering in the shower, but the same insight don't strike when we need them the most. How we find ourselves having forgotten our reason for entering the kitchen or bedroom. Why did we lose our grip on our original intention? How we can't focus on something when we want to, like writing reports that's not the deadline, or why we procrastinate and focus on things that aren't productive instead of spending our time productively. How we find ourselves in bed bouncing around a loop of the same five smartphone app, checking for updates again and again until we snap out our trance. We may fall into a similar mindless loop on the internet, switching between news, website, conversation, and social media. How we are unable to stop worrying about certain things until they are resolved or vanish into the either. As you read hyperfocus and learn to focus more deliberately, these lapses will make a lot more sense, and you will even learn how to prevent them. The four types of tasks. In many ways, managing your attention is like choosing what you watch on Netflix. When you first launch the website, you are presented with a landing page highlighting just a few of many shows that are available. The Netflix homepage is like a fork in the road. Only instead of two paths forward, there are thousands. Taking some of those paths will leave you feeling happy, some will mindlessly entertain you, and other will teach you something useful. Deciding where to direct our attention presents a similar fork in the road. Only a pathway leads to the innumerable things on which we can choose to focus. Right now, you are absorbed in this book, but if you look up from this page to or your e-reader, you will see many alternative objectives of attention. Some are more meaningful and productive than others. Focusing on this book is probably more productive than the focusing on your smartphone, the wall, or the music in the background. If you are grabbing breakfast with a friend, focus on him or her. It's infinitely more rewarding than watching the football highlights playing in the background. When you tally up all the potential things on which you could focus in your external environment, there is truly an overwhelming number of options that is not even counting in the trivia, idea, and the memories in your own head. This is the problem with managing your attention on autopilot mode. The most urgent and stimulating thing in your environments are rarely most significant. This is why switching off autopilot mode is so critical. Directing your attention toward most important object of your choosing. Then sustaining the attention is the most consequential decision you will make throughout the day. You are what we pay attention to make sense of all the things bidding in our focus. It's helpful to divide our task into categories. I'll discuss focus here largely as it pertains to work, but these rules apply just as much to your life at home as several sections later in the book will explore. There are two main criteria to consider where categorizing what to focus on: whether a task is productive, you accomplish a lot by doing it, and whether a task is attractive, fun to do, or unattractive, boring, frustrating, difficult. I'll refer to this grid quite often, so let's quickly take a look at each of the four categories of tasks. First, necessary work includes tasks that are unattractive yet productive. Team meetings, calls about your quarterly budget falls into this quadrant. We usually have to push ourselves to do this type of work. Second, unnecessary work includes the tasks that are both unproductive and unattractive, like rearranging the paper on your desk or files on your computer. We usually don't bother with these tasks unless we are procrastinating on doing something else or resisting a task that falls into the necessary work or purposeful work category. Spending times on unnecessary work tasks keeps us busy, but such a busyness is just an active form of laziness when it doesn't lead to the actually accomplishing anything. 3. Distracting work includes stimulating unproductive tasks and as such is a black hole for productivity. It includes social media, most conversation, news website, water cooler chat, and every other form of low return distraction. This activity can be fun but should generally be indulged in small doses. The better you become at managing your attention, the less time you will spend in this quadrant. The remaining box on the chat is the purposeful work, the productivity sweet spot. These are the tasks we are put on earth to do, the tasks we are most engaged in as we do them, the tasks with which we make the largest impact. Very few tasks fits into the box. Most people I have encountered have 3 or 4 at most. Doing good work in this category usually require more brain power, and we are often better at this type of task than other people are. An actor's most purposeful task might be rehearsal and perform. A financial advisor's purposeful task might be to make investment, meet with a client, and educate herself on industry trend. A researcher's most important task might include designing and running studies, teaching and applying for the funding. My most important tasks are writing books and blog articles, reading research and encounter new idea, and giving talk. In your personal life, your purposeful task might include spending time with your kids, working on side hustles, and volunteering with local charity. A perfectly productive person would focus on only the top two quadrants of the above chart. In this, we are in If things were that simple, though, you wouldn't need this book, as you have no doubt experienced sticking with the border of necessary and purposeful work, in which easier said than done. Every day, tasks from all four quadrants compete for our attention. Working on autopilot means we are more prone to falling prey to the unnecessary and distracting ones, and often spend time on necessary and purposeful work only when we are on deadline. I noticed something interesting as I applied the research in this book to my own life. As time passed, I began to spend less time on autopilot and focused more attention on my most purposeful and necessary tasks. As you become more deliberate about managing your attention, I think you will find the same to be true for your work. Here is an immediate way to improve your productivity. Divide up your work task based on the four categories in the above grid. This simple activity will give you an incredible awareness of what's actually important in your work, because I'll return to the grid often giving forward. Diving up your work activity will be valuable as you make your way through the book. Thank you.